Alright. Ever since I teased it when I covered the ED, you guys have been hounding me to cover the Mob Psycho 100 OP. And again, I think there's good reason for that. This OP is freaking incredible, so much so that I had to reevaluate my top 10 OPs of all time list that I'm doing for my 100,000 subscribers special, even though I'm almost at 200,000 subscribers now. Which, of course, means that I was inevitably going to cover it. I just had to read the manga in order to catch the metric ton of references that are hidden in this OP. But I appreciate you guys bullying me and pestering me in order to keep me on track, and also giving me all of these comments that I can throw on screen so I seem like one of those big, important YouTubers that people actually care about. Also, like one of those big, important YouTube channels, I recently opened a post office box so that I can receive fan mail. So if you've got something that you've been itching to send me, provided that it's not anthrax, you can shoot that over to P.O. Box 54066, Central Lonsdale, North Vancouver, British Columbia, area code V7M2J0. I'll be opening whatever you guys send me at least once a month on the channel at the end of one of these videos, so look forward to seeing that. Now, without further ado, the Mob Psycho 100 OP starts with a thoroughly novel group shot of the series' main cast, with each character framed on a sign in a gorgeous, neon-tinged cityscape. Mob, Reagan, Ritsu, Teruki, and Misato all appear on these signs, but all we can see of them is their eyes. This primes us to follow the eyes of other characters and pay attention to what they tell us about their emotions, as well as look for the shape of eyes hidden in the environment. The third eye is, of course, one of the key symbols of psychic power, and Mob's eyes in particular are shown prominently in the OP to emphasize his power. We're treated to one hell of a Sakuga moment as the camera begins rolling forward through the scene and flying through the streets of the city before pulling back to an extreme fisheye shot of the cityscape framing the moon. The skyline forms the shape of Mob's eye, once again showing his overwhelming power over the world. It's such an effective shot that they reincorporated it into the final episode of the show itself. And the contrast with how they show it there versus how they show it here reveals a deeper meaning. Ishiguro fantasizes about rising up above the world, whereas Mob descends into it, which makes sense since his goal as a character is to become more normal and likable. The wild, rough style of animation that Mob is rendered in suggests that this may be a representation of the hidden power that shows itself whenever he's unconscious, which in turn hints that Mob's true power may come from somewhere beyond our world. As this figure descends, the color of all the lights in the city changes from purple to yellow, perhaps indicating that the arrival of this spirit or whatever it is changed the nature of Mob's world. This, coupled with the anime original fight that kicks off the first episode, seems to indicate that Studio Bones knows more about Mob than has thus far been revealed in the manga. The world closes in, bringing us to a shot of a vacuum tube clock as it begins counting up to 100 in time with the music, obviously a reference to the buildup of Mob's emotions. Here we're introduced to Mob and Reagan as they walk away from the camera, with various objects including a bent spoon and Reagan's bag of table salt floating around them. We pull down from their plodding feet to the ocean floor, which possibly represents Ritsu sinking into despair as depicted on the cover of Volume 4. Or it could just be a hint at power lurking beneath the surface, it's unclear. Almost every shot flows smoothly into the next one like this. There are very few hard cuts in this OP, which is something that always impresses me when I see it. The OP does another thing that I always appreciate as well. It finds creative ways to integrate its credits, such as having them break apart in the water or appear in the vacuum tube displays. And even the credits that don't have their own physicality are integral to the visual composition of each shot, balancing out the other elements in frame. They appear and disappear as part of the animation, and the animation is designed to draw your eye to them. This is the most effective use of credits that I've seen since... I don't want to spoil that 100k special. We slide past Misato with her camera, and in the background we see Mob struggling to keep up with the Body Improvement Club as they run up a motion graphic. Tracking left, we see a collage of psychic phenomena and elements from the show. Notably, we can see Karada Tomei, Reigen, and Mob's crush Tsubomi, as well as the floating dog that Mob used in an attempt to impress her back when he was a kid. The flying car is a reference to the second Claw arc of the manga, where Mob flies over the city in a car, and later similar cars are used as a diversion against Claw. The potted tomato plant, which we'll get a better look at a little later on, was grown with the power of chlorokinesis that Mob learned in the manga by defeating the evil spirit Wiggly figure. This power sets up an important plot point for the current arc of the manga, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Also in the background, there's a piece of takoyaki, which is Mob's favorite food. Moving right along, footloose and fancy-free, we see the Earth itself, possibly alluding to Claw's designs on world domination. Beside it, there's a row of cell phones with Mob's face in them, perhaps in reference to the rumors spread about him after he liberated Dimple's cult and beat up Teruki. Zooming into the last phone screen, we see Mob standing in front of a bursting egg and tomato, while various torn papers swirl around his head. These are pages of a novel, written by a girl who confesses her feelings to Mob on a bet after he embarrasses himself while running for student council. You're gonna see as we keep going that this OP references some deep cuts from the manga. Some of them are possibly deeper than even I am capable of recognizing. I have no idea what the hell these mushrooms that Mob and the Body Improvement Club are exercising on are supposed to mean, but knowing this series, it could well be a literal translation of something that I just missed in the manga. Assuming this shot is metaphorical, the way that the delinquents crash through their peaceful training session like literal missiles could be foreshadowing of what they do to Mob in order to get at Teruki. Likewise, the water filling up in front of Reigen could foreshadow how Mob fills him up with power in the last episode of the series so that Reigen can fight Claw in his stead. It could also simply be an artistic shot taken from the perspective of a client in his office being poured a glass of water, though. Following this, we see Karada Tomei's head open up and all of her wild imaginings about telepathy and the paranormal spill out. The rough style in which they're rendered indicates that these are childish fantasies. Interestingly, for one frame, you can see her own face inside her mouth. Dimple's cocky attitude really shines through in this character shot, although there isn't much deeper meaning behind it. Likewise, there isn't much to this shot of Teruki, it's simply a more stylized, psychedelic version of a shot taken straight from the anime where he attacks Mob. The cornfield image references the cover of the manga's second tankobon volume, but the context is different here. The original cover depicted Mob's loneliness and isolation, while setting up the similarly lonely Teruki's animosity toward him on the back cover. The new version shows him together with his brother, but the two of them are floating independently of one another, isolated in a different way. The lonely image is also given a comedic edge by the reactions of the Telepathy Club. Next, we see Mob and Tsubomi reflected in salt crystals, which could be a reference to either Salt Middle School or the bag of table salt that Reigen sometimes uses in exorcisms. The latter seems more likely since the music picks up as he pops out and splashes the screen with salt to disrupt Mob's reverie. Mob Choir cheers and the OP kicks into high gear, panning across a bombastic, vibrant carnival scene. In a broad sense, it evokes the wild nature of youth, but it is also composed entirely of many references to the show and manga itself, including Reigen's agency, Dimple's cult, and a non-spoilery allusion to the sacred tree. The various creature designs are all taken from the info dump at the start of the first episode, and in the background you can see a brief glimpse of more flying cars and dogs, the recorders that were used to force Tenga out of class, and a poster for the Psycho Helmet cult. The rapidly growing tomato plant brings us up to a classroom door, which the student council president slides open, revealing a hooded silhouette within which we see the headquarters of Claw. This foreshadows how the president's actions cause Ritsu to awaken his psychic abilities and end up putting him in Claw's sights. Ishiguro appears and leans into the camera to menace us, and in his eyes we see the glowing symbol of Claw. Zooming in, we're shown a lineup of the various scars who lead Claw's division in Salt City. The symbol leaves a deep impression in the concrete behind it, again alluding to their world-dominating ambitions. From here, we cut to an outline of Mob, depicted at the center of a twisting maze, with his heart as the goal. Energy flows through his body and straight into his heart, which could be taken as his emotions reaching 100% capacity. However, given what we see next, it has an even clearer and more straightforward meaning than that. As the energy reaches Mob's heart, it erupts into a massive nuclear explosion, which then forms into a piece of broccoli. You may think that this is some kind of obscure metaphor. It is not. This is a direct, literal depiction of a thing that happens in the manga when Mob fights Claw's leader. He takes the leader's energy into himself to prevent an explosion, and it ends up flowing into a broccoli seed in his breast pocket, which expands to the size of a massive tree full of psychic energy. This ends up being the inciting incident for the story's next arc, which happens to involve Dimple. And funnily enough, the broccoli ends up turning into him in the OP. Again, this is all pretty literal, which surprised me when I got to that point in the manga. When I first watched the OP, I just thought that the animators were taking artistic liberties and having fun, which makes me wonder if they know something we don't. I want to say that Reagan burning his mouth on this takoyaki as it turns into the sun references what happens to him in the second episode, but it could easily be a hint at the next arc one has planned. This series is certainly weird enough for that. References aside, let me just say that I love artsy transforming animations like this. There's something really magical about watching one object seamlessly morph into another before your eyes, and I wish that more anime studios would make use of this technique. Reagan is replaced by a twisting mass of spoons that turns into Ritsu, referencing how his power awakens. In the background, we see Mob's eyes staring into him, but he's too ashamed to meet his brother's gaze, or ours. This is the moment where he's on the precipice of falling into darkness, and turning into a cactus, another reference to imagery from the manga, means he's falling deeper and deeper into despair, feeding on the negative emotions that gave birth to his powers in the first place. Things take on a lighter tone very quickly, however, as the cactus is covered with Teruki's ridiculous, misshapen wig. Teruki looks determined for a brief moment, but he is utterly blown away by Mob's power. As Mob enters his unknown percent state, he's rendered in an extremely rough, sketchy art style. This is done to emphasize the immense, untamable nature of his hidden powers. Powers great enough to shake the foundations of buildings and indeed the very earth itself. This final explosion brings us into the title, while in the background pages from the manga flip rapidly by. As the music reaches its final note, the title is colored in, then fades away to bring us back to the cityscape. The OP forms a complete loop, leaving us to repeat the cycle of Mob's emotions building up and then releasing. This is so damn cool and well done, especially with how almost every shot in the OP flows into the next one seamlessly. The few hard cuts in this OP do diminish the effect a little, and I kind of wonder if the original intent wasn't to make the whole thing seamless like this, but even as it stands, it is beyond impressive what they've accomplished here. And even without the gimmick, this OP really shines, giving you a strong impression of each character's personality, the themes of the show, and the quirky nature of the humor and action. Plus, it presents the titles in an interesting way, which is very, very important for an OP to do. 99 by Mob Choir sucks me in like almost no other OP I've ever seen. I love this OP to pieces, and I'd love to hear what you think about it, so please leave a comment below and let me know. I appreciate your feedback. Heck, I appreciate you even watching this video in the first place. And I'm especially grateful if you're one of the generous patrons who makes it possible for me to do this for a living. You guys are my heroes. Wait, this is the wrong anime to make that joke.
Ho ho! Hey, stop the presses! Not even gonna turn on the proper microphone for this.
Just got back from the post office. I went to check to see if I got anything because I put out the P.O. box on Twitter a couple days ago. And I only got one letter, but that makes sense since I put it out like a week ago and it takes time for things to ship here. And this came from Seattle, which is very close. So Trey Allen in Seattle sent me a letter. And I'm gonna open it up and see what's inside. All right. Okay, so Trey Allen is the guy who runs. He's the guy who runs my Jeff Thu Quotes and Jeff Thu Rumors Twitter, and he sent this delightful little letter. We will expose the truth about you. We will show the world who you really are. We are always watching. We are always collecting evidence. We are grateful that you followed us on Twitter at Jeff Thu Rumors. Oh god. Yeah, thanks Trey for sending that in. Now back to your regularly scheduled anime analysis. Or, well, actually it'll be the end card, but thank you. Love you, Trey. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more things about Mob Psycho, then I recommend checking out my analysis of the show's excellent ED over there. And of course, be sure to subscribe to Mother's Basement and turn on notifications so that you don't miss a single video I make. But for now, I'm Jeff Thu, Professional Shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.